Welcome back to Business Analyst and Reporting. This is day 3 of our Manufacturing Cost Foundations series. My name is Matt. Before we jump in, like, subscribe, and comment below. I love hearing your questions and feedback. If you want the MCQs in the Word documents to practice along with these lessons, subscribe and email me at matthew.franz2026@gmail.com. I'm happy to send them to you, and that email address will be in the last slide. Today's theme is planning versus reality. And that's a big idea in budgeting and forecasting. You can plan perfectly on paper, but reality rarely follows your assumptions. And we're going to cover 3 areas: static versus flexible budgets, cost behavior modeling, forecast thinking. And by the end, you'll be able to identify why budgets lie in manufacturing and how to forecast costs accurately when production changes. So first, let's talk about static budgets. Static budgets are fixed budgets which are prepared before a period begins, based on expected production volume. They do not change even if your actual production volume is different. And why does this matter? In manufacturing, most costs change with production. Static budgets can misrepresent performance because they ignore volume variations. For example, imagine you budget $10,000 to produce 1,000 units, but your factory actually produces 1,200 units. A static budget might show you are over budget. But most of that over is just more units being made. Static budgets are easy to prepare, but they lie when compared to reality. So static versus actual. Here's an example table. You have for January budgeted units at 1,000. Budgeted cost was 10,000. Actual units produced was 1,200, and the actual cost was 11,500, which gives us a variance of 1,500. Notice that the 1,500 variance, without context, it looks bad, but it's just because you produced 200 more units. And this is where flexible budgets come in. Flexible budgets adjust for actual production volume, scaling variable costs appropriately. And let's take that same example. Let's say variable costs per unit were $8 and fixed costs was $2,000 and actual production equals 1,200 units. Flexible budget total is 1,200 times the $8 plus 2,000 equals 11,600. Now the variance to actual 11,500 is only $100, a much clearer picture of performance. So let's do a quick exercise. Imagine fixed costs are 3,000 and variable cost is 10,000 per unit. If you budgeted for 500 units but actually produced 600, what would a flexible budget total be? Well, the flexible budget total is your 600 times 10 plus 3,000 equals 9,000. So see, the flexible budget gives management a fair comparison to actual results. Next, let's move on to and understand cost behavior. How costs react to production changes. There are 3 types of costs: variable costs, which change proportionally with production; fixed costs, which stay constant in a short run; mixed costs, which are part fixed and part variable. Knowing these is key to creating realistic forecasts. The high and low method is a simple way of estimate variable and fixed costs using the highest and lowest activity periods. The formula is a variable cost divided by unit equals cost at high activity minus cost at low activity, which is divided by high units minus low units. Then fixed cost equals total cost at any activity minus, in parentheses, variable cost times units. Here's a high-low example. So you have your variable cost divided by unit, which is 12,000 minus 9,000. And that's 3,000 divided by 1,500 minus 1,000 equals $6 per unit. So your fixed cost equals 9,000 minus 1,000 times 6, and that equals 3,000. Now we've separated what changes from what doesn't. For more precision, we can use a regression analysis. Unlike high and low, regression uses all data points to estimate fixed and variable components. Visualize this as a scatter plot with a line of best fit. It smooths anomalies and gives a better forecast. Even a light regression shows you how costs respond across a wide range of production volumes. Very important to manufacturing where output fluctuates. Try this. Suppose you have 5 months of data. Identify high and low months and calculate variable and fixed costs. Then imagine plotting all 5 points. You will see a line trending upward, and that's regression in action. Finally, let's talk about forecast thinking. Once we understand cost behavior, we can predict costs if production changes. Ask yourself, if volume increases 10%, which costs move? Variable, yes, it's proportional. And fixed costs, no, doesn't move at all. Mixed, only the variable portion moves. So, for example, original production, 1,000 units, variable cost at $5 per unit, and fixed cost at 2,000. If production increases 10% to 1,100 units, the variable equals 1,100 times $5, which is 5,500. The fixed cost stays the same, which is 2,000. So the total is 7,500. Let's compare it again. Static budget equaled 10,000, which was our original assumption, and the flexible budget equals 7,500, which is adjusted for reality. The difference is crucial for management decisions. Flexible budgeting shows true performance, while static budgeting can mislead. So wrapping up day 3 of Manufacturing Cost Foundations. 1, static budgets are easy but often misleading. 2, flexible budgets adjust for actual production and provide a fair comparison. 3, cost behavior modeling, high-low regression, separates variable and fixed costs. Forecast thinking allows you to project costs accurately as production changes. And again, thanks for tuning in. And don't forget, if you want the MCQ Word documents to practice what we covered today, subscribe and email me at matthew.franz2026@gmail.com, and I'll send them to you. Like, subscribe, and comment below with any questions or topics you want to cover. And let's get to the MCQs for today. All right, so question one, static budget trap. A manufacturing company prepared a static budget based on producing 50,000 units. Actual production was 60,000 units. Actual manufacturing costs exceeded the static budgeted costs. And which conclusion is most appropriate? Well, the answer is C. The cost overrun may be due to increased production volume. Higher production volume naturally increases variable costs. Comparing actual costs at 60,000 units to a static budget based on 50,000 units is misleading. You can conclude overspending without adjusting for volume. Question 2. Planning versus evaluation. Which budget is most appropriate for evaluating a production manager's performance when actual activity differs from budgeted activity? The answer is C, flexible budget. Flexible budgets will adjust costs to actual activity levels and are therefore appropriate for performance evaluation when production differs from the plan. Question 3, flexible budget logic. A flexible budget differs from a static budget because a flexible budget B, adjusts costs based on actual activity levels. Flexible budgets adjust variable costs to reflect actual activity while holding fixed costs constant, and this allows for a meaningful variance analysis. Question 4, manufacturing cost behavior. Which of the following costs is least likely to change in total as production volume increases within the relevant range? C, factory rent. Factory rent is a fixed cost within the relevant range and does not change in total as production volume changes. Question 5, a high and low method concept. Which statement best describes the high and low method of cost estimation? And the answer is B. It separates fixed and variable costs using two activity levels. The high and low method estimates variable and fixed costs using the highest and lowest activity levels observed. Question 6, high and low limitations. A primary limitation of the high and low method is that it, C, uses only two data points. The high and low method relies on only two data points, making it sensitive to outliers and less reliable than regression. Question 7, regression versus high and low. Compared to the high and low method, regression analysis, C, minimizes error across all data points. Regression analysis uses all available data points and statistically minimizes error, making it more reliable than the high and low method. Question 8, forecasting logic. If production volume increases by 15%, which cost is most likely to increase by approximately the same percentage? And the answer is direct materials. Direct materials are variable costs and typically increase in proportion to production volume. Question 9, mixed costs in forecasting. When forecasting costs for an increase in activity, mixed costs should be C, separated into fixed and variable components. Mixed costs contain both fixed and variable components. Proper forecasting requires separating these components, so only variable portion changes with activity. And question 10, step costs. Which situation best illustrates stepped fixed costs? C, hiring an additional shift supervisor after exceeding capacity. Steps Step fixed costs remain constant until capacity is exceeded, at which point they increase in discrete increments such as hiring an additional supervisor. All right, and that wraps up day 3 of our Manufacturing Cost Foundation series. Today we covered static versus flexible budgets, cost behavior modeling, how to forecast costs when production changes. If you found this helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment below with your questions or thoughts. I love seeing your engagement. It really helps me know what to cover next. And again, if you want these MCQs in Word format to practice what we went through today, just subscribe and email me at matthew.franz2026@gmail.com. I'll send them directly to you. Thanks again for watching. I'll see you in day 4, where we'll build on these concepts and dive deeper into manufacturing cost analysis. Keep learning, keep practicing, and keep those numbers working for you.